Hi, I'm Billy, and today I'm going to transform into my original character, Miss Bill. So watch now as I go from this to this. Yeah! Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Billy, and this is the Master of Transformation, where I'm going to be taking you step by step as I transform into my original character, Miss Bill. Over the last decade, I've been a professional performer. I've been on 2 national tours with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus as a clown, and I've also represented the characters for the Walt Disney Company. I'm really excited to be transforming into Miss Bill for all of you today. All right, I am ready to get started. I hope you guys are ready to get started too. Before we all met, I went to the bathroom and I shaved off my beard. That's always one of my very first steps that I do. And I usually wait until the very last minute before I'm going to be putting on my makeup to do that shave. So that way I can have a nice, clean cut as close to my skin as possible. The more often you shave, you get not as clean of a shave. So I usually try to grow out a little bit of scruff between each makeup day. So that way when I am shaving, I'm getting it as close to my skin as possible. On days where I'm doing my makeup 5 days in a row and I am having to shave constantly, my skin can get a little bit more rough. So there's a lot of extra care that has to go into it. And one thing that I always use on my face after I shave is this Thayer's Witch Hazel spray. It's really great for reducing inflammation. It helps take out red from the face as well. And I'll spritz it on my face kind of just like this. And then I'll rub it in. I'll make sure that I get underneath my eyes because this will be great for puffiness that you have under your eyes. Witch hazel is one of the active ingredients that's in Preparation H. So it's really good at taking the swelling out of things, just like a hemorrhoid. So I love to use this on those puffy areas of my face, especially here in my beard area, because I will notice that I'll start to get inflammation or redness there from my face just being pissed off from being shaven too much. After I'm done with the witch hazel, I like to really treat myself as much as I can. So I have this very luxurious La Mer water mist hydrating water spray. It's basically just water, but it's very expensive water. So it makes me get totally feeling like I'm ready to get glammed up. Don't talk while you're spraying that on because it does have a little bit of chemical smell. And it went right into my face and into my mouth. Also wanted to share that, you know, as we're getting into this transformation, you're gonna see a different side of me than you might be used to seeing. I'm going to be a little bit more casual or more loose with my phrasing because I'm becoming a clown, and when I'm my true clown, I am my true self and I don't have any filters, whereas when I'm in a professional setting, I am much more precise about what I'm saying. I have 4 other filters that are pretty much out there in front of me to make sure that I'm not saying the wrong stuff. All right, now that my face is nice and shaved and it's nice and hydrated, I did some prep care for it, so it's gonna be a little bit nicer to me as I'm starting my makeup application. So I like to start with my eyes first because I get a lot of fallout from that, and it's very frustrating for me when I do my foundation first, and then I get the fallout from my eyeshadow because then I'm having to redo work that I had already done. So that's why I like to do my eyes first. But most makeup tutorials, I have found that people like to do their foundation first, and to each their own. They say that there's no rules in makeup. So I take that and I literally run with it as far as I can go because I don't really do that well with rules. So I'm usually figuring out a way that I can bend it to make it my own no matter what I'm doing, and I apply that heavily to being a drag queen. Now that I'm all done with that, I'm gonna start with my eyes like I had said. The first thing that I'm gonna start with is this Morphe concealer. This is not totally white, but it looks pretty white. It's one of the fairest complexions that you can get for the concealer. And I use this on my eyes so that way when I'm putting the color over it, I'm getting a really nice, rich, vibrant shade of the color that I'm applying, because it doesn't show up as nicely just on my bare skin. Using not a whole lot, I'm gonna start right over here, right underneath the bridge of my brow, and I'm gonna just place a little bit there. I've got some really interesting makeup techniques that you guys will see. My background does come from doing clown makeup, and when I learned how to do my clown makeup, it was supposed to be seen at the bottom of an arena, and so that people all the way up at the top of the nosebleed seats could still see the expressions on my face. So when I was learning how to do makeup, it was very, very, very big, and that has translated beautifully over into my drag makeup, because a lot of those same rules apply too, where you want to have the larger than life exaggerated features, but also a lot of times you're being seen from on a stage, or you're in a dark bar or a nightclub. So having these exaggerated features really does help the audience see your face more. So right now, as you see, I'm just putting a little bit of this white concealer right underneath the bridge of my brow. That's going to also act as a little bit of a highlight for my brow later on. But I'm just using my finger now, and I'm putting that all over my lid. I'm going to be covering my whole lid with this white concealer. And as I'm putting this on, I'm kind of just patting it in. I don't really like dragging my finger because that causes a lot of lines. So I just do little small pat, 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 pats. And I'm going right here into the corner of my eye, and I'm going directly up to where the end of my eyebrow is. With my white, I also go down the side just a little bit, and this is something that I've taken directly from my clown makeup, and it really just helps open up that eye even more. I'm gonna be putting a little bit of foundation right here at this bottom part, so it might look a little bit weird right now, but it's gonna really help me be able to carry the color all the way around this outside of my eye. Even though I dragged it down to the side, I'm still gonna drag it underneath my bottom lid just a little bit too. So it's going to be coming almost to the corner of one of the quarters of my eye. So this step that I'm doing right now is literally the exact same step that I would do if I were doing my clown makeup. There's really no difference here at all. So I'm proud that I have found this on my own, because it's not really something that I've seen in a lot of other makeup tutorials, other people telling you to do your makeup this way, and that's what makes it original to me, is that I'm staying true to who my original brand is, which is a clown. You know, over the last couple of years, we've seen the art of clowning kind of die in front of us, and I really blame that sort of on the movie It. It was really popular back when it first came out, but then it was resurrected and was re-released. And it's really made clowning kind of fashionable to be scared of. And I've also found that there's a lot of camaraderie behind that too, that if one person says that they're scared of clowns, other people are like, oh yeah, I'm scared of clowns too. But not a lot of people have met a clown like me. And one of my biggest priorities about being a clown is to break people of that fear and always have, you know, beautiful makeup and be approachable. And if anybody is showing me that they're scared of any kind of element to me, I'm going to be tweaking that so that way there's not another person that's going to be scared of that too. So as a clown, I didn't really wear a whole lot of makeup compared to most clowns, and I let a lot of my natural face come through. And in the clown world, we call that goose makeup, whereas somebody that covers their face all the way from the top to the bottom inside their ears is called white face. And the clown from the movie It is a white face clown. So to be opposite of that, that's why I chose to be august and have a lot of my flesh coming out from underneath my makeup. So now that I've got my white concealer all done, that's all blended in really nicely there, but it doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff over it. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on my eyebrows. This is gonna be just a really loose application because I'm gonna be adding makeup over on top of it, but I just wanna have my eyebrows placed so that way when I'm doing the rest of my makeup, I'm just able to maneuver around them, because the eyebrows can be one of the most difficult elements of your makeup, and I am absolutely a perfectionist. I like to have nice clean lines, and I like them to be as symmetrical as possible. I know they say that the eyebrows are not sisters, they are cousins, or whatever that is, but I still like mine to be perfect because I notice in a photo if they're off. And I am my biggest critique, so if I'm unhappy with it, there's some other bitch that's out there that's noticing it too. So I'm just gonna eliminate that entirely and really do a nice job on my eyebrows. I also use a lot of grease paint. This is something that I'm also taking from my clown expertise as well. This is a Mayron color cup here. This is just the color brown, and this is what I use to fill in my eyebrows. This grease paint needs to be set with a powder or else it will stay wet. The great thing about it is that once it's powdered, I could get completely sprayed in the face with water, wipe my face, and the makeup would still be there. So when I was in the circus, some days we were doing 3 shows a day where I would be up at 7 a.m. and we would have audience in front of us by 9, and then I would be performing all the way until 9 p.m. So that's a really long chunk of time to be in makeup. So with the grease paint, it really allows me to have good longevity from it. And it also can be easy to touch up too. You just put it back on and then you powder over it too. So now that I've got a little bit of my brown makeup here on the end of this brush, I've had this brush forever. I do a good job at cleaning it, but once you find a good brush, you'll use it until it's completely dead. If you find a good brush that you really like, I recommend getting as many of them as you can afford to get. So as I'm putting on my eyebrows, I have a lot of expression that's here in my face and in my eyebrows. A lot of drag queens completely cover their eyebrows with a glue stick, and I have tried that many times. I've watched tons of different tutorials, and I've been able to do it. And I've been able to have it look seamless and have it look smooth. But because my forehead is so expressive, and as I move my face, I make so many lines, I'm constantly getting cracks through those glue sticks. So it was really, no matter what I was doing, how good I was doing it, I'm not the type of performer that's going to have a standstill face the entire time. So I've kind of just shifted a little bit more towards not blocking out my eyebrows and just using my natural brow. And I've had a lot more success in doing that. My makeup has looked much cleaner, and in result, I've been much more confident as well. So as I'm putting on my eyebrows, I know that I have this mark that's right here, and I also have this mark that's right there. So I really want those to be kind of the ends of my eyebrows. So as I am animating and moving my face around, those are going to be areas on my face that are going to be the most active. And if I go out too far, it's going to eliminate some of that movement, or if I go too short, it's not going to pick that movement up. So it is really important of where I'm precisely placing the end of that eyebrow, so that way I can get maximum movement, because that's what I want, is to be able to have as exaggerated of features as possible. As I put it on, I'll be moving my face so that way I can make sure that I'm putting it all in the right spot. Over here would be too far. That would get into the middle crease. So right here on this spot, right where that little divot is, that's gonna be where my line is gonna go. So I'm just gonna put that mark there as a little place marker for now. I'm gonna do the other side too. There we go. So now you can see, just by putting those little marks on there, how much my eyebrows are gonna move when I have them all on. Now I'm gonna go over the end of my brush again. I usually keep makeup here in my cap when I'm working with a really wet or creamy makeup like this. So that way I can be dragging my brush through this makeup and just have the perfect amount on the end of the brush. If I have too much on and I press it on, it will glob and it it, you know, will look kind of sloppy. So that's why I drag it through the top there. Now, because I'm going to be using my natural brow as well, I want them to be just a little bit bigger than my boy brow is. So I'm going to be going right from that mark that I've already created there, and I'm going to trace just right on the top of my eyebrow here. And I'm going to go all the way to the end. And then as I'm getting to the end, I'm going to rotate my brush just a little bit so that way I can flick it and have somewhat of a thin end on the bottom of the brow. So just because I'm using a little bit of paint on here, it's gonna need me to go over it a couple more times to darken it. But I like to use less makeup first and exaggerate it than having too much on and having to compensate and, you know, backpedal. So oftentimes I'll start with a light application and then build on top of that. So now I've pretty much got my eyebrow on here, traced on the top. I've also learned before that when you're putting your eyebrow on, you want the end of your eyebrow to go right to the corner of your line, the corner of your eyeball, and you want the end of your brow to go perfectly from a diagonal here up to the end of your eyebrow. If you've got it going out too far, it's gonna start to look a little weird, but to each their own. Do what you want if you want to have nice, long lizard tail eyebrows. My shape is done there. Now I'm gonna start just filling in my natural brow with this same grease paint. And I'm gonna be blending at the top of the brow, making sure that I'm connecting where my natural brow is and that line is that I just created. And next I'll be moving over to the other side. And now I'm going to just put one quick little layer of powder over this so that way I can start applying some eyeshadow. First, the ghetto circus way is straight up just Johnson's baby powder inside a sock. You just dump it into the sock, you tie it in a knot, and then you've got a huge, endless supply of powder that you can use. Since I've applied the concealer, however, I've gotten a little bit of a crease right here in my eyelid. So right before I go in eye powder, I'm gonna take my finger and I'm gonna blend that out again real quick, so that way I'm not powdering in a hard line. Didn't take long for me to feather that out. And now I'm just gonna press this into the grease. Now that I've got my powder on, looking super crazy, I'm gonna just take my fingers, which has powder on them from holding the sock, and I'm just gonna press it in and pat it down. You don't wanna ever drag, because if there are little bits of makeup that are still wet, it's gonna drag that wet paint. So I always just pat and go straight up and down. And you can usually feel immediately if there's still wet makeup on there, and you can powder a little bit more. Now that I've got it all patted in, it's feeling pretty good to me. So I'm gonna use a powder brush. I specifically only use this for my powder. I've got a ton of different brushes, and I really try to stick to the use of each brush and not deviate outside of that, not using my, foundation highlighting brush for wiping away my powder. As I'm wiping it away, I'm gonna be going with the lines of my makeup, so I don't wanna be brushing against my eyebrow, because again, if I had wet makeup in it, I could be pulling wet makeup out. So I always just wanna be going with the lines of my makeup here. Some people will tell you to leave that on and let it bake. I think that kind of once it's on and it's set, and if I feel like I'm starting to sweat a little bit, then I'll reapply it. But I like it to look as clean as possible when I'm doing my makeup too. And it's hard for me to see the finished product when I have tons of powder all over my face. I'm next gonna move on to adding a little bit of color onto my eyelid. I have a beautiful palette from Morphe. It's probably the most popular palette out on the market right now. This is a James Charles palette. I bought it far before he wronged his friend Tati but it is a really good palette. And kids are going nuts online right now, throwing these things into bonfires. And I think it's kind of like that Nike ordeal again when everyone's cutting the logo off their socks. I hopefully, you know, for this guy's sake, it will blow over and that his career is not completely dead. But with James Charles, this is a really good and also scary example of how, you know, one wrong turn can really, really mess up all the hard work that you've put into building your career. I'm going to be starting with this beautiful kind of fuchsia, flamingo-ish pink. And here I'm going to be starting right underneath where my eyebrow is where I'm going to start. And then I'm going to be rounding it off, circling around my eye and bringing it all the way down over onto this side. Now I'm going to be using more than one color today. So I'm going to be sort of stopping here in the middle so that way I can blend it together. But eventually that eyeshadow will go all the way around my eye here. I've got a nice good amount of makeup here on the edge of my brush. And I'm gonna start gently right underneath my eyebrow and starting to just sort of feather that towards the other side. I don't know if you can see, but as I'm putting this on, I'm getting a lot of what they call the fallout, which is color that's falling here onto my lashes, and it is a total bitch. But that's the exact reason why I don't do the rest of my foundation first, so that way I'm not wrecking my work I've already done.
Billy, I have a question. Do you have a favorite makeup brush?
This right here. Because I can get really in there and I can make pretty nice fine lines even just with my fingertip, and I have an amazing sense of control with my fingers. I'm pretty much done with this pink for right now. Up on top, but I do want to continue it a little bit underneath my eye. So now over here where I had dragged the white concealer underneath, I'm gonna put just a little bit of a dab of pink right there on both sides too. And then I'll help blend that in once I add in the other color.
Hey Billy, we were curious what Miss Bill's drink of choice is.
Miss Bill's drink of choice, that's a really great question. Today it is a little bit of a Japanese whiskey with Arizona green tea. I sometimes need a little bit of a boost to get me to come out of my shell a little bit more, and it is the devil's poison, that's for sure, because it gets me into a whole lot of trouble. So I'm taking it easy on the drink right now, but it's helping me be a little bit looser with my conversation. All right, for the next color, I'm going to be using this purple here. I'm gonna just dab my tip of my brush in there just a little bit. And now, differently from the pink, I'm gonna be going right in the corner of my eye this time. I'm gonna be going right in the crease. So on my upper lid, I'm gonna be hitting my eye right here in the corner crease and going up. I wanna still leave a little bit of that white that's underneath my eyebrow because that highlight there is really gonna help with that movement that my eyebrow has. And it also helps bring out that brow bone and give me more of that feminine look as well. I also think that, you know, it's important to know what your best attributes are. Some people's it's their nose, some people's it's their lips, and amplifying that and showing it off so that way you can feel good and confident about yourself when you're all ready. The great thing about makeup too is that if there's areas of your face that you don't love, you can alter the way that you look with makeup, and that's really transformative and powerful too, is that you can kind of like try on what you might look like and then wash it off.
I have a question. So I love the riff you just had about how you can use makeup to amplify the most dramatic features or the features that you like the most. And then earlier in the conversation, you were mentioning how you're bringing your elements of your clown look into your drag look. I'm wondering what the process is for highlighting some of those features and how you're identifying, as you did with, with the expressions on your eyebrows, like how you're specifically amplifying some of those favorite features.
As I was talking about with my eyebrows, how I put them in a certain spot to give them more movement, I also do that with my lips, and I try to do that with my eyes as well. The reason that I brought the white concealer around my eye here is because I wanted it to look really open, where if I had traced it all the way around, it would have started to close the eye just a little bit. So when I'm taking elements from my clown makeup and translating them into my drag makeup, you'll see that mostly in my brows and in my lips. I don't put on a full lip. I sort of draw my lips on just a little bit shorter, a little bit more petite, because it gives it more of like this rounder kind of like kissy illusion to it. But as far as my eyes, when I have my clown makeup on, I always have blue eyeshadow and blue eyeliner on, and that way it helps pull the blue out of my eyes. So if it were somebody that was seeing me from really far away, the blueness from my eyes would still be coming through.
I'm also curious how the drag community is with your clown background. If you get flack or respect. Does that make sense?
Originally, I'm a clown. And it took me so long to realize or to pinpoint in drag that drag are clowns too. And, I've been a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race since season 1. They're on season 11 right now. But it wasn't until about season 6 that some of the queens on the show, specifically Bianca Del Rio, started using the word clown and using clowning as justification for choices that they were making as their character. And with all of my clowning background, it really wasn't until then that I was like, oh shit, I could be a drag queen too and take what I know from being a clown and translate it into that art form. So from my experience, what I have found is that there are a lot of drag queens who throw around the word clown. And clown to them is that they're putting on a makeup and they're putting on a big wig and they're putting on a silly costume and maybe they're acting kind of funny, but they're not necessarily doing skills of a clown. So that's where I see that there's a disconnect, is that clown to them is just getting dressed up. Whereas clown to me, there's, the rules of 3 and there's comedy writing and there's all the skills that clowns have, and all of that feeds who I am as a drag performer. I do have to say, however, that I do think that drag is single-handedly keeping the art of clowning alive right now. As I was talking about the movie It earlier and how that has impacted the clown community, it's just reminding me to bring more attention to shining the light on other art forms that are still being clowns. So, although in drag I'm being a clown, I don't have the red nose on, I can still take all of the elements and my knowledge from clowning and really feed my drag character. So it's great and an advantage that I have. But when I'm meeting drag queens and I tell them I have a clown background, they are kind of like noses up, you can't sit at our table type of reactions. And as inclusive as drag is, or, appears on the surface, the actual drag community is not very inclusive. And because I am so different or stumbled upon drag my own way, I haven't found that I've been accepted in the drag community as easily as somebody who has a drag mom. that just teaches them everything, and wham bam, thank you ma'am, now you're a drag queen and you can go out, perform, and make your money. You know, I've used my years of expertise in clowning, and now I'm bringing that to drag, and I've just been having a hard time at getting my footing within the community. So I've recently just thrown all that out, and I'm just gonna keep doing what I do to just not worry about it and not have to have the sense of acceptance from other people, because at the end of the day, that's what I want. I want other people to be like, oh, you're kicking ass, you're a great queen. And I just gotta show them, and that's how it needs to be done. And that's what I like about who I am, is that I'm not always just trying to fit into the same box as everybody else. I'll use the skills that I know that I have and bring that to the table.
We'll drink to that. Cheers.
We'll drink to that.
Cheers.
I was pretty much wrapping up the color that I was putting here on my eyes for now. Looking straight here in this camera though, I can already see that it looks like a little bit wonk to me. So I'm gonna go back and sort of round that out and make it look a little bit more proportionate. I'm seeing this side is drooped down just a little bit more, where this side is a little bit more rounded. And this shape over here is much more flattering for my face. So I'm gonna try to mirror that over here on this side too.
Billy, do you ever find that you can do your makeup better on one side of your face than on the other?
Yes, absolutely. My left side is really challenging for me. It's probably because I'm reaching across my face and I'm right-handed. Usually what I'll do is I'll do my bad side first. So if I completely fuck it up, I can, you know, mirror that on my good side, because there's nothing more frustrating than having it look like perfect on the one side and then I go to do my bad side and just ruin my face. I have found that everybody will always say nobody's gonna notice it, and 9 times out of 10 nobody notices it. And I was once told that if somebody notices it, you're moving too slow. Yeah, maybe if you're doing a huge big photo shoot, you're gonna be taking that little bit of extra care, but day to day, you know, if you're thinking about how many people are actually going to be seeing your face and analyzing your makeup, it's probably slim to none, and that you're just fighting yourself. All right, you guys, so I've got color here on my eyelids now, and I'm going to add a little bit of white into my eyelid now. I'm going to refer back to the concealer that I had a few moments ago that I had started with. What I'm gonna be doing a little bit differently this time is that I'm gonna be using a brush, because I wanna have a nice clean line that's gonna help open up my eye just a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do here first is I'm gonna just take it from the applicator, and I'm just gonna kind of dab it right over here in the corner of my eye. Now I'm gonna use the brush and I'm gonna sort of just smooth it out and draw that line in there. I'm gonna just start pulling from the white that I had just placed there in the corner, and I'm gonna start dragging it up towards the crease of my eye. So the crease of my eye is right in this natural place at the top of my eyelid, where you can start to see the brow bone starting to form here. So I want to trace this white in a round shape up towards the brow bone. Then I'm going to start to take the white that I have here in the corner, and I'm also going to drag it underneath my eye just a little bit as well, because with this white concealer here, I'm going to continue all the way around to the edge of my eye. So this is going to go right onto my waterline. I like to place the makeup right on there because that white really opens up the eye so much. I notice that whenever I'm doing my makeup and I'm doing these areas of my face where it takes just a little bit of extra concentration, I'll find myself holding my breath, and I'll finish doing what I'm doing and I'm like, I try to remind myself while I'm doing my makeup to just breathe too. If I'm not breathing, it's causing added stress that is unnecessary. And I'll find that I'm feeling stressed out, and then when I pinpoint what is causing it, it's that I'm not breathing.
Billy, we're curious what your skincare tips are. Like, I mean, you've spent your life wearing makeup and your skin is flawless.
Thank you. I don't have a very complicated regimen for my skincare. I use regular bar soap on my face. So whatever I use and wash my body with, that's what I wash my face with too. So it'll basically be the same swooping motion where it's like, I'm doing my pits, I'm doing my ears, I'm doing my face, my neck. I want it to all kind of feel like where it has that like almost squeakiness to it. That's when I feel clean. If I feel any sort of grease on it, I'm uncomfortable. So that's really the reason why I use that bar soap all on my face too. But it's not just any bar soap like Irish Springs or Pert Plus or any of that stuff. I do use an Olay age-defying bar soap. So I am playing with it just a little bit there. And then I told you that I use that witch hazel spray on my face too when my face is seeming like it's kind of pissed off. But then I also will finish that with a regular Olay moisturizer, usually with the SPF 15 in it, because I think it's important that you're protecting your space every day too from the sun. And being out here in California, I'm in the sun a lot. If I do get a sunburn, however, I love to just use apple cider vinegar. I'll put it onto a cotton ball and then I'll just dab the red sore areas from my sunburn with the apple cider vinegar. And I have found that that really helps take the sting away. And every time I've done it, my sunburn isn't gone the next day, but the pain from the sunburn is gone the next day. It makes you stink. Disclaimer, you will reek, but it will make you feel so much better. I try to clean off the white makeup off my eyelashes so that way I don't have white lashes, because I always think that that looks a little bit weird unless you're doing, you know, something specific for the look. So I'll take that baby wipe that I've been cleaning my brushes with and I'll just grab a hold of these lashes and I'll pull the white makeup off. And I do that first because then I'm gonna put a little bit of powder on it. But when I'm powdering it, I don't want it to be setting the makeup onto my lashes. I just want it to be setting onto my waterline. So it's important that I'm doing this step and removing the makeup off my lashes first. Kind of just using the tissue, and I've got it like pinched between my fingers right here. And that's what I'll just grab onto my lashes with and just pull the makeup off. I'm gonna go back now to my palette, and there's a white on here. I'll use the white from my palette here, and that will help give it a nice vibrant white onto the waterline. And I'll just take this powder and I'll just dab it right onto the waterline, and that will usually help set it enough. I'm also gonna pull it up here onto my upper lid, and I'm gonna set that with this white powder too. It is my least favorite time, eyeliner time. I don't like doing the eyeliner because I always will mess it up. So here, this is what I'm gonna be using. This is the NYX liquid eyeliner. It's got a really nice thin point on it. I'm gonna be doing my left side first. As we had talked about before, that is my weaker side for applying the makeup. From here, I'll just mark the corner of my eye, right where the top lid meets the lower lid. And from here, I'll draw another dot right along the edge of my color. And I'm doing it ever so slightly. It's mostly just for me to see. It's like one of those marks that you put on the wall before you put the hammer into the wall. That's this for me. So I'm just putting up that other little dot. And I want this outward dot to be as thin as possible, as small as possible, because essentially that's going to be the very tip of my winged liner there. So the reason I do dots is because it is less of a commitment and you're able to connect the dots afterwards. When you're drawing straight lines, that's when stuff starts to go jagged, or the pen starts to bleed and makes one area fatter than the other side. So I usually try to do my detailed, sensitive areas with little dots and just connecting the lines. From here, I'm gonna be doing a gentle swooping motion, going only one direction. You don't ever wanna go forward and backwards. When you're putting on the eyeliner, you only ever wanna be flicking it out in the direction that you are intending to draw the line. All right, so I've got that eye line drawn on. It's just light right now.
Do you have a preference in terms of like felt tip or brush tip applicators for like what gives you the best control?
I like the firmer tip, so I've preferred the felt tip because it's just a little bit harder and I can press just a little bit more. Pretty much done with the bulk of the work for my eyes. I'm gonna start blocking out the color of my beard. I have a really thick beard, so what I do here is I add a color like orange or red. I use a darker foundation color that has a little bit of orange in it to cover the blueness of my beard. If you don't do this step and you put your foundation on, you will be able to see color from your beard coming out through your foundation. So since I do have a really dark beard, this is a step that I really can't skip. I'll just drag my finger into the foundation and then kind of just put it onto my face, and I only put it over the areas that I need to have the color blocked out. But I'm just patting this on, covering up the color, and then I'm going to start my foundation, and I'm going to put my foundation directly over this color, and then you won't be able to see the blueness anymore. This is another good example though of me just using my fingers. I can feel where there's no makeup. Sometimes I'll also use this color right here underneath my eyes because I get a little bit of blueness in my skin right in that spot too. So I'll block out that blueness right there too, and it will help when I add the highlighter over on top of it. And then once I'm done with this step, I'm gonna powder this so that way it sets. So anytime I'm gonna be wanting it to be thin or discreet, or if I'm gonna be adding makeup on top of it, I try to use more of this translucent powder because it is just thinner and it helps with it feeling less cakey. When I'm putting the powder on, I put it here onto my powder puff and then I blend it in just a little bit. And when I put it on, I pat, pat, pat straight upward and downward motions, never dragging the makeup. What I like about these powder puffs is that I can fold it and I can like make it the shape that I need to get into specific areas. So just because it's this round puff doesn't mean I need to keep it open like that, but I can really like get in here and I can repowder that area where I added the color cover.
How do you find your foundation sits on top of the powder?
When I am done with this step, I'm gonna brush the powder off so the foundation shouldn't affect it when I'm putting it on. After I'm done with the powder, I'll be running my fingers along the makeup as well, and I'll be able to feel if it's tacky or not, or if I need to powder it anywhere else. And I'm not dragging it, I'm just kind of lightly patting my face here and feeling where else it needs to be set. Okay. I was pretty modest with the powder that I was using there because I am gonna be putting more makeup over it. I don't want it to feel cakey and clumpy. And just brush off a little bit of that extra powder. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but you can already see that like the color of my beard is so much more hidden. Next, I'm gonna start with my regular old foundation. For this, I used Morphe and I went to one of the makeup consultants and I said, can you help me match my foundation? They helped me with going up for a highlighter, and they helped me going down in color for my contour. So if you're ever unsure about your match, go and ask. And that's what those makeup consultants are there to help you with, is to give you that nice natural look. I gotta also shout out to what I use when I'm in clown, because that stuff really does set on my face just a little bit better. And for that, I use this Mayron cream stick blend. What's great about this is that you can literally just kind of like paint it onto your face and then blend it in. I usually will tend to use a makeup applicator, so that way I'm not being as wasteful with the makeup. When I'm putting it directly on, I sometimes find that it uses more makeup than you needed to use. So by doing this, I'll kind of just like pat it on to the makeup sponge and then pat it onto my face, and I'm getting an even distribution of the makeup while also using as little of the product as possible. Throw this foundation all over my face. I'm pretty much going to cover all of my face here with this foundation. Originally, I had intended to use the Morphe foundation, but it looks like I'm using the Mayron today, which is okay. This is called Warm Honey, and it brings out a really nice warmness to my face. I always like having, you know, that California glow with my makeup. I don't ever like looking too pale or too washed out, and this Warm Honey really helps me achieve that effect. I think that the warmness makes us look a little bit healthier. I've got olive complexions in my face as well, and anytime I'm dehydrated, they're coming out even more, and then I start to have I look a little jaundiced, and that's not a cute look. So I'm almost done with my foundation. As you can see, I'm patting. I'm not doing huge pats, but tons of little micro up and downward motions. And then I want to make sure I'm bringing it down onto my neck too. This one I'm going to drag down just a little bit farther than that color block that I did, because I want it to blend a little bit more seamlessly. I'm also gonna start to bring it back a little bit more back behind my ear. I'm gonna bring a little bit onto my ear as well. Okay, so now that this one's wet, I'm gonna add in some contour color to this, and I'm gonna blend it in with the base before I powder it. The contour color that I'm using today is just this little cheap e.l.f. that you can get from Target contour color. I'm gonna be a little bit sloppy with this as I'm putting it on, but I'm gonna just draw this crown up here on the top of my head. This is gonna be eventually blended into my forehead, but it's gonna help give the illusion that I have more of a small, petite forehead. I'm also going to contour my cheeks here, but this does dry kind of quickly, so I wanna move somewhat fast and not let this contour color dry too much. From here, I'm gonna just pat this contour color in. And I don't wanna be able to see it too much. I want it to look natural. I want it to just be subtle. I'm gonna be starting to contour my cheeks. When I'm contouring my cheek, I'm gonna be trying to hit directly below my cheekbone to give it a little bit of the shadow there, so I can highlight above and below that contour and really make the cheekbones pop. So you can really see where my cheekbones are. It makes like that triangle shape there, and that's what I'm gonna be trying to emulate with my contouring. When I make this shape, I'm gonna just draw that contour right onto that line that you can see and blend it there, and then adding the highlighter onto my upper cheek and just below the contour. Sometimes I don't even use a liquid contour cream like I am doing right now. I'll just use a dry powder, and I think that that works fine too. They say, however, that if you're performing on stage or in stage lighting, that it will be more pronounced if you are using the cream as a base and then using the foundation on top of it. And I can tell from pictures that that's true. Now I have a somewhat of a masculine jaw here, so I'm kind of going to just put a little bit of the contour right here on the edge of my jaw, and I'm going to cut this edge off. Anything that you're using that is going to be dark, like this contouring, is going to help it drop back or help it disappear in photos or on stage. And anything that is white or a lighter foundation is going to help it move forward. They say that white or a highlight is light in a can. I'm gonna just put this all over my Adam's apple. I really just pile that on because I do have a pretty big Adam's apple. So by putting this darkness over it, it helps it just eliminate the shadows just a little bit more. I'm gonna put a little bit right here underneath my lip, and then I'm also gonna put some here on my nose. So I'm just gonna draw down each side of my nose and blend them in. Next, I'm going to use a little bit more concealer that I have here. This might look like white, but is actually a really fair flesh color. The spots that I'm going to use this on are right here on my forehead, and then I'm going to put it here on my cheek, down the tip of my nose. And I'm just going to blend this in here and blend it into my forehead. A nice round motions so that way it has nice soft blend to it. Got that all nice and blended in. You can see the little highlights on the top of my forehead now.
We're noticing over here on mute just how you've manipulated light and shadow in just a few minutes, in just a few swipes, and just as each of these successive layers are going on, it's just, we're watching it transform. It's really cool to be able to share this in real time.
After I'm done with this step, it really is just kind of just finishing touches, and then I'm closer towards the finish line. I'm done with my foundation right now. I'm done with the contour colors that I added and the highlighting colors as well. So next I'm gonna powder. Got my trusty sock. First, I'm gonna kind of just like peruse around my face and make sure that I didn't get any lines that started to form across my forehead. I need to blend all of that in before I set this powder too. I do see that there are a couple of lines over here on the outside, so I'm gonna just blend that in real quick. Here I am, just using my powder sock, slightly patting upward and downward motions, hitting all of these wet spots. Everything feels good. Once I've put it on, I'm gonna also then go back with my hand and I'm gonna pat it with my fingers.
So this is the part that scares me, because I'm paranoid that something will change and be weird when the powder goes on, or that I'll screw something up.
There is always the risk. There is always the risk. Every time you're powdering, the chance of you messing up what you had done. Usually, most of the time, it's you're moving the product by accident. When I've noticed that my makeup is really wet, I'll put my head back and I'll kind of just like use my powder and powder my face that way. So that way I'm not moving it and transferring the makeup, but I've just completely filled my face with powder. Everything is set, and then I can go in with my fingers and pat everywhere. I'm gonna take my powder brush now and I'm gonna go with the lines of my face again and brush it all away. I'll take a wet baby wipe and then I'll dab my face with the wet baby wipe and kind of remove the residual powder that's there. So I'm gonna do that now. I'll make sure that I wipe down the scalp of my head really good, because if I'm gonna be having to use any glue or any kind of adhesive, it will not set to the powder. So I gotta make sure that I'm removing all of that. I learned that from having to glue on my clown nose. So just by tapping it with the baby wipe here, it's just making the color just a little bit more vibrant from the foundation, and it's not letting it be washed out. Next, I am going to redo my eyebrows and finish those up a little bit. I'm gonna throw on my lashes, throw on some blush, throw on my lips, and then my face will be done. So I'm gonna go back to that same brush that I had earlier. I had just drawn on the shape of my eyebrows that I wanted to have, but now I'm really going to darken them up just a little bit more. I'm gonna retrace over those lines that I had put there earlier. This won't be the last step for my eyebrows though. Just like I had set the white with the white powder, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna set my eyebrows with one of the browns from my palette. But before I do that, I'm gonna add a little bit of those wispies above my eyebrow to give it a little bit more of a natural look. I do always like it to be a little bit exaggerated though, so this is one of those clownier elements to my drag makeup, is the big wacky brow. And then really in no order, I'm gonna just add a couple of extra little spots on my brow to make it look like those are hair. I'll only do a couple of these browns because I'm also gonna go over this with my liquid eyeliner, and I'm gonna put a couple of black lines in there too. That's pretty much all I'll do for the brown in my eyebrows. Next, I'm gonna use this eyeshadow brush, and this I'm gonna use to darken my eyebrows. I'm gonna go back to my palette and I'm gonna hit up one of these browns. This brown over here is pretty much my color. And then I'm just gonna use this color and I'm gonna trace it over my eyebrow. It'll give it a little bit more depth to have that little bit of extra color in there. It's gonna also help set the wet grease paint. And from here, I want to make sure that I'm being as delicate as possible, so that way I'm not having strong black lines, because I am gonna be using the felt tip again for when I'm doing this. And I wanna try to start from the middle of my brow and then flicking it outward again. One thing that I always do about my makeup is right here, I'll make like a little check mark. And that wispiness right there really helps me with movement that I'm getting there from my eyebrows. I'm going to do one of my favorite parts right now, which is adding my blush on. The blush that I'm gonna be using is a Ben Nye powder blush. This is DR13. It's called Natural Blush. I'm gonna hit that up. I'm gonna do a big smile and get it right here on the balls of my cheeks. I'm gonna drag it back up towards my ear. I'm also gonna do my nose, do my chin. I'm also gonna do underneath my nose. Just this nice little natural blush color that gives me more of that warmness. Because now I will also be using another Ben Nye powder blush. This one is called Cocoa Rose. And this one has a little bit more of the purple blue pigment in it, and it really complements my skin wall. So one of the spots that I'll do is sort of like underneath my chin, just a little bit right on the edge of my chin. This color goes a long way, so I gotta make sure that I only use a little bit when I apply. This is a nod to my clown. I'll put a little bit of this red rouge right underneath my nose there, and it helps work as a contour and cinch my nose upward just a little bit there. And then I'll make another smile, add just a little bit of this color onto the apples of my cheeks and drag it back just a little bit. And then I'll also put it up here on my temples, and that will also help give the illusion that I have a smaller forehead. And I'll carry that up into these valleys that I've got up here. So when I was with the circus, if you showed up to work, did your makeup, and you put red makeup on your ears, that meant that you got laid the night before. Now, I didn't get laid last night, but I like to bring a little bit of that history to my makeup, so I'll put a little bit of red on my ears just for shits. And that's like one of my signature items, is a little bit of redness that I have on my ears. Now, I did lose a little bit of the bridge of my nose, so I'm gonna go back real quick and I'm gonna add some highlighter right onto the tip of my nose. I have this really great highlighting contouring palette. This is You Got It, also from Morphe. One in here has a lot of great highs and lows, but I really like this color called Lit and Stardust. They add a really great highlighting color to the makeup, and you'll see so much the lift that it gives your face. So I'm gonna use the Stardust color first, and I'm just gonna kind of trace that down the edge of my nose. I'm gonna put this on my chin right above where I had put that red color, and then I'm gonna put it up here above where I had put the contour. I think highlighting is one of the most transformative steps that you can take with your makeup, and it's one that I never miss. I'm even gonna do a little bit more on top of this with this luster dust powder that I have. That is basically just like a glitter, but I love glitter. These are my absolute favorite liquid lipsticks that I've got. They're Jeffree Star, and these are the most on brand with Miss Bill, if you can't tell from my backdrop. Before I put it on, I'm gonna take my baby wipe and I'm gonna clean up my lips a little bit to remove some of that foundation makeup that I don't need there. I also don't paint my lip from corner to corner. I kind of cut my lips in just a little bit more and leave the corners of my lips blank. So I want to leave a little bit of the foundation covering the areas that I'm gonna leave open, and being sure that I don't remove that makeup there. You guys ready for lips? For the lip here, I'm really just gonna do like the real duck lip part of my lip. Then I'm going to transfer that over just by rubbing them together. The great thing about these Jeffree Star applicators is that it has a little bit of the ridge right on the edge there, and it like cups onto my lip, and it makes it so easy to draw on that I've used other liquid lipsticks and I've wanted to like come take this and wash it and use it on the other lipstick because the applicator is so good. So I just kind of finished the shape that I want to have with my top lip. I always do my bottom lip a little bit smaller first, so that way I can exaggerate that a little bit bigger than the top lip, so I can see that the lipstick from the top is transferring down a little bit onto the bottom lip. So now I'm gonna just shape that out a little bit more to match it up. Okay, my lip shape is done. The reason I don't go right into the corners of my mouth is very similar to the reason that I make the choices about my eyebrows too. I want the exaggeration to happen whenever I'm having that movement. So when you go into the corners of your mouth, it in a way makes your mouth more limited to the range of motion that it can have. When you don't go into the edge of your mouth, it gives more space for me to kind of like shift that bottom lip over from what my top lip is doing, and it makes it just a little bit more comedic and gives it more motion. So that's why I do the lips the way that I do. The last step to make them pop just a little bit more is I revert back to that white concealer one more time, put a little bit on the tip of my finger, and I'll put that onto my lip, blend it together, and it kind of just gives it a little bit more of a highlight there. Okay, next I'm going to set my lip real quick with this powder because I've noticed that this Jeffree Star lipstick doesn't really set that well. It doesn't really dry that well without a powder set. So I'm gonna use this thin translucent powder for this. I'm gonna just throw a little bit here onto my powder brush and then pat my lips. Brush that off. Lash glue here, when I'm putting on my eyelash glue, I put just a little dab right here on my hand. I've noticed that when you put eyelashes on, sometimes it can make your eyes look droopy if they're not placed the right way. So a trick that I know to prevent that is I just put on a regular pair of eyelashes first. To put that glue on, I just hold onto the lash and then I kind of just drag it through that drop of glue that I had put onto my hand. And I've seen a lot of people use tweezers to put their eyelashes on, but I have to use my hand. And I'll put that onto my lash, starting towards the corner of my eye, but not all the way on the inside corner of my eye. I'll drop that lash on there.
Do you ever trim your lashes?
Yes, thanks for reminding me. You'll find that when you put the eyelashes on that sometimes they do need to be trimmed, and I'll usually trim off like a bunch or two from the little groups of follicles that they have on here. And I find that it just fits my eye a little bit better. The reason I put on a regular eyelash first is that when I put on my bigger, larger, exaggerated lash, it kind of just sits more on top of that lash and doesn't give me that droopy eye effect that where it happens if I use the large lash first. With the eyelash glue, you never want to just like get it wet and throw it on right away. You want to let it dry for about 30 seconds or so because it'll make it just a little bit more tacky and it'll stick to itself a little bit more. Whereas when you put it on wet, it will slide around just a little bit. There's one. I think it's so much easier for me personally to just use my fingers and press them down. I can feel when it's nice and snug on there as opposed to gently using the tweezers to stick them on. Something else that I do for my signature look is I put on a little bit of a lower lash as well. I do usually wear the lashes a couple of times before I get rid of them. But Ro, earlier, how you were talking about trimming the eyelashes, this is one of my trimmings. And I'm repurposing it for the lower portion of the eyebrow. And I've also glued a rhinestone up onto the top of it. So I'm gonna just hold on to the lash. I'm gonna dab that rhinestone and the lash trimming onto the glue. And then right underneath my eye, right in the center where the white meets the black is where I'm going to throw on my lower lash. I like to use rhinestones on my face and in my makeup. It's definitely a nod to my circus past, being covered in rhinestones in my costume. So I like having that little bit of an extra sparkle.
I imagine having that sparkle in the center of your eye also does something under lights that's really captivating for a drag look.
It definitely picks up the light. I think when you have the lashes above your eye, it always runs you the risk of it closing your eye and making your eye look a little bit smaller. So this rhinestone that I'm putting underneath my lid is also helping to open my eye and give the illusion more that the blue from my eye is continued down to where the rhinestone is. Another reason why I do the lower lash is very often in clown makeup, you might have seen clowns will like draw a black line there, or they'll have this element underneath their eye, and it is to make the eye look bigger, but instead of doing it with makeup, I'm doing it with the eyelash here. Final touches that I usually use is I use this Ben Nye Luxe powder. It is a luster dust, and it's just a very, very, very fine glitter, but it works amazingly as a highlighter. And I'll usually just grab a Q-tip and ever so slightly, I'll just dab it into the luster dust, so it's got a little bit on there, and I'll go into the inside corner of my eye and I'll dab it right there. I'll drag it down the center of my nose, on the end of my nose, make me look like I have a little bit of a button nose. I'm gonna bring it up here to my upper cheek, here into my chin.
I love that you're using a Q-tip. I love that you like make use of everything that you have and, you know, put it to work for you. Like, that is so genius. I never would have thought to use a Q-tip, especially on the nose where you want to be really like precise of where you're putting it. That is genius.
I guess it comes from Circus again. When I was doing my makeup there, sometimes we would do a show at like 11 a.m. and then we would do a show at, 5 p.m. And between the shows, I would be washing my makeup off and reapplying it later on. And if you think about, all of the baby wipes and all of the brushes and everything that go into play, Q-tips are a really cheap, easy tool that you can use in so many different ways. I also, as part of my makeup for when I was a clown, would have little dots that were in the corner of my mouth, and I would just pull the cotton off the tip of here, and then I would use the little edge of the stick on my Q-tip, and I would use that to make my little dots. And I do some freckles on my drag face. And at first I was using the Q-tip, but then I just switched over to using this white liquid eyeliner here, and I just use it and I just put little freckles on my face. And the reason I do it white is because when I was first coming out with my clown makeup, my makeup teacher put white freckles on me. And I thought that it was the weirdest thing, and he did it because he thought it made me look more youthful. And that's something that I'm always really trying to channel with my drag character, is being as young and youthful as possible. So I put on these little white dots on my cheeks to give it just a little bit more of that adolescent feel to it. That is pretty much it for my face, but I was gonna throw a wig on for you guys so you could see how I do that real quick. Let's do it, shall we?
Something that I'm reflecting on is the resourcefulness of a lot of your makeup techniques. I've seen Q-tips, I've seen fingers, and brushes that you've used forever, how you've scraped, the last little bits out of things. And it reminded me of a very privileged experience I had, which was to go and actually experience Clown Alley. And it's a very sacred space where the clowns get ready for their performances. And I'd love for you to kind of share what that is like from your side, but from my side, it's just walking through this curtain space, and everyone's got these trunks, and everyone's trunk has a story, but you open up the trunk and there's makeup and all the things that they use to get into their look. To have the experience of being back there, especially now that the circus is no longer, active, it was very special, but also it made me think about, of course, coming from Ridiculously Efficient, like making the most with the least and making the most out of what you have available to you. And as you were sharing, like the stories of multiple shows a day, different city every week, day after day, I'm reminded of the everyday resourcefulness that it takes to put together a look that is cohesive, consistent, top-notch, and to see the details that you're putting into every single element of this. I'm just reflecting on that and just frankly in awe.
Thank you. You had mentioned Clown Alley. So real quick, back in the day, back in like the circus tent days, there wasn't ever room in the dressing room for the clowns. So they legit would put them into the alley, and that's where the clowns got ready. And, the steamer trunks that you had mentioned were these, vintage steamer trunks that we had that were originally designed to be going on the boats with people as they're, immigrating from one country to another, because it has drawers and it had a spot where you could use a hanger to hang things. And as we were moving from city to city to city, it was nice to be able to just have like a little space that was ours. And sometimes we were just set up, you know, underneath stairs in the arena or what have you, but by having our trunk there with us, it gave us our own little area that we could have privacy in. I also like the illusion too. I like there to be a front stage and there to be a backstage, and not the audience not seeing you part in or part out of costume. You come fully out and you go in fully in, and you're only doing those, you know, adjustments backstage where the audience isn't seeing you. Next, I'm going to throw on a wig. One thing that I always recommend that you're starting off with is having a wig cap. When you're first getting these wig caps, they can be really tight. So I recommend that you put them in between your hands and you can kind of like stretch them out. I've also seen people who cut a hole in the top of the wig cap. So that way they can stretch it onto their head just a little bit better. I put both of my hands into the wig cap so that way I can have it nice, big, and open, and I slip it over my head this way. Pull it down nice and far in the back, as far as it can go. And then I'm gonna pull the wig cap back so it goes all the way to my hairline. So it might look like it's at my hairline right now, but my hairline is actually far back here. Now, because it's only on about, you know, half of the size of my head, when you're putting these big wigs on, a lot of times people will tape their wig cap down or they'll glue right here. Because I'm not going to be going out and doing any heavy performing right now, I'm going to skip that step. Now that I've got my wig cap on and it's pulled back the right way, I'm going to get my wig ready to be put on. So this is a lace front wig. I use lace front wigs because it gives much more of a gradual transition from where the wig is to where your natural skin is. And when you're putting the wig on, if you're doing it by yourself, you want to turn it forward so the front of the wig is facing in front, and you'll take one index finger and you'll put them pretty much on one side of each side of the wig. Inside the wigs, however, they do have ear tabs. So I'm pretty much putting my fingertips right here, right at the top of where the ear tabs are. So that way I can hold it behind me with one finger on each side, and I can put it right down now on where that hairline is. Because I've got it pressed up against my hairline, I can slip them around now down to the back, and I can pull the back of the wig down. My ears for this wig in particular don't really fit that well, so I tuck my ears also into the wig, so my ears are tucked up in there as well. To make it look nice and neat, I want to make sure I don't have any folds or bunches that are in my lace. And then to secure it, once I've got the wig on and in place, I'm going to just use some bobby pins. I'm going to open up the bobby pin like this with my finger, and then I'm just going to reach into the back, hook it into the hair first, and then up underneath, and then I'll do that again over on the opposite side. Push it up there nice and good. To make it be nice and secure, I might just try to separate the hair here as much as I can and shove this bobby pin in and get it tucked in up underneath that wig cap. Having the wig cap on in there is really going to help make this feel more secure, so that way it's not going to be flipping off at all as I'm moving or performing around. So the look will not be complete without my top. So as a nod to my wonderful night at Yuri's night this year, I'll be throwing on my astronaut jacket. From that to this. Thank you, thank you.
Billy, I am so impressed with the whole thing, the whole transformation, every part of it. But looking at you now and seeing how well thought out all of your color choices were, I love it so much, and I'm so impressed by you.
Thank you. I mean, I gotta say, we're seeing a little bit of a hybrid the whole time, like a little bit of Miss Bill, a little bit of Billy. But it wasn't until like now where I have like the wig on and the whole thing, that I feel like I'm a fully realized version of Miss Bill, and I feel like I've been like flicked on, and I'm ready to go be in character.
Now that you're fully in Miss Bill, do you feel different?
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly what I was just referring to. Is that like you were seeing little tastes of it, but now I feel like I'm Miss Bill, because I'm complete. I've got the wig, I've got the makeup. I didn't skip any steps, and I feel good. I feel like I have a confidence that I didn't have a couple of hours ago, and that is what is so amazing and transformative about drag. It's what I love about it so much. When I am creating a new character, I refer to this amazing tool that we have at Ridiculously Efficient, and it's called the 10X Avatar Generator. And my bestie Marissa and I worked together to create this tool, so that way whenever I'm creating a new character, or if one of you are looking to tap into this alter ego that you know lives inside of you, you can use this tool and you can help create this 10X version of yourself. Because what you're looking at right now, this is the 10X version of the Billy that you know. I'm still myself, but I'm tapping into all of these elements of my personality that make me the best version of myself. And that best version of ourselves lives within everybody. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of digging or a little bit of self-exploration to figure out who you really are inside. So I'm going to be sharing our 10X Avatar Generator in the Ridiculously Efficient community. I encourage all of you to fill it out, see who you can discover, and I also challenge you to try to create your 10X look as well. I know that Marissa and I are working together to come up with her 10X version of herself that she'll be debuting at DragCon. So I'm very excited to be there and experience that with her. I hope that you guys all have fun putting together your 10X versions of yourselves. All right, well, I gotta say thank you all very much for spending all of that time with me. It wasn't too hard to do, but you can achieve it too. Just rewatch this recorded video and we'll go step by step, transforming from me to Miss Bill. Bye. Bye. I said bye.